Let's talk about one of the toughest choices any of us ever have to make. It's that classic battle, right? The path that everyone else expects you to follow versus the one you secretly, deep down, dream of walking yourself. This exact conflict is at the heart of a story about a young dancer named Elena, and I think her journey has a powerful lesson in it for all of us. But before we jump into Elena's world, I want to ask you something. Just think about it for a second. Do you have a dream you kind of keep under wraps? You know, something you're incredibly passionate about, but maybe you're worried it's not practical, or that people just wouldn't get it. Just hold that thought, because I have a feeling you're going to see a little bit of yourself in this story.
All right, so meet Elena. She lives in this big, bustling city called Arclight, where it feels like everybody is on this fast track to a safe, conventional career. But Elena, she has a secret. For her, life isn't about spreadsheets or big office meetings. It's about dance. And we're not talking about just a hobby here. We're talking about the one and only time she feels completely, totally alive.
And here's the real struggle, her two worlds. On one side, you've got the practical path. This is what her parents are hoping for. You know, a steady job, security, a predictable future. But on the other side, there's dance. And for Elena, dance means freedom. It means being her true self. Can you imagine that constant push and pull? Trying so hard to be the good student they expect, while your heart is just screaming to go in a totally different direction?
So, what does she do? To keep that dream from dying, she finds a secret place, a sanctuary. Every single evening, after the homework is finally done and she's checked all the boxes for the day, she slips away to this old, abandoned warehouse. This place was so much more than just a spot to practice. It was the only place in the entire world where she could let go of all that pressure and just be.
I mean, just picture this for a second. There's no fancy studio with mirrors, no audience, no one cheering her on. It's just her, dancing for hours on a cracked concrete floor. What fuels that? Nothing but the pure, raw joy of doing what she loves. This, right here, is what a real dream looks like before anyone else gets to see it.
But you know how it is. A secret that powerful, a passion that bright. It can't stay hidden forever. Sooner or later, there's a moment where it risks being seen. And for Elena, that moment was just around the corner. And believe me, it was going to change absolutely everything.
So one night, after she's just poured her heart out onto that concrete floor, she gets this feeling she's not alone. And she's right. There's someone who's been watching her from the shadows. It turns out to be an older man, a former dancer who's now a choreographer, and he saw something truly special in the way she moved.
He comes up to her and says something that completely shifts her world on its axis. He says, "Dreams in motion are powerful, but only if you're willing to take the first step." Now, this wasn't just a nice compliment. It was a spark. It was someone finally seeing her not just as a student, but as the artist she was.
And it turns out, this wasn't just some random meeting. He was actually out there looking for raw talent. And in her, he saw a fire. So right there in that dusty old warehouse, he offers her a spot in his brand new dance troupe. A real chance, a real path to take that hidden dream and make it her reality. You'd think she would be ecstatic, right? But her first reaction wasn't joy, it was fear. The very first thing that popped into her head was, my parents wouldn't approve. And this is so key. Her biggest hurdle wasn't her skill, it wasn't a lack of opportunity, it was the incredible weight of the expectations she was carrying on her shoulders.
And this brings us to what is honestly the most important part of her journey. That first step the choreographer talked about, yeah, it wasn't a fancy dance move. It was going to be a brave and absolutely terrifying conversation.
It all started inside her after a long, sleepless night. She just knew she had to do it. And that decision led to the action. She sits her parents down, her heart just hammering in her chest. But the real magic, the breakthrough, happened when she started to speak. She wasn't just asking for permission anymore. She was speaking with this fire, this determination that they had never, ever seen in her before. She was finally showing them her dream.
And that is what changed everything. It stopped being about the logic of a career in dance. I mean, sure, they were hesitant. Of course they were. But for the first time, they weren't just looking at their studious daughter. They were seeing an artist with this undeniable, blazing passion in her eyes.
And in the end, her father gives her this quiet, cautious blessing. It wasn't a big, loud celebration, but it was everything she needed. It was permission, not just from them, but for herself to finally go after the one thing she truly loved. That blessing was the key that unlocked a whole new world. So with their blessing, her dream was finally, truly set in motion. And this is what happens when a secret passion is finally given the space and the light to grow.
Now, let's be real, the story doesn't just wrap up in a neat little bow there. The reality was tough. It was full of grueling practices, sore muscles, and moments where she seriously doubted if she could do it. But through all of that, she was happy, truly, deeply happy, because she was finally living a life that felt like her own.
And all of that hard work, all of that sweat and doubt, it all leads to this moment, the troupe's very first major performance. This is the big test, right? The moment of truth where her private passion becomes a very public reality.
And when she gets on that stage, something amazing happens. She doesn't freeze up. She channels that exact same feeling of freedom she had back in that dusty old warehouse. The audience, the lights, it all just melts away and she dances. And out there in the crowd are her parents, their faces just beaming with a kind of pride they never, ever expected to feel.
Which brings us right back to where we started. Back to you, because Alina's story, it isn't really just about her, is it? It's a mirror. Which part of her journey really hit home for you? Was it the hidden passion, the fear of what everyone would think, or maybe the need for just one brave conversation? And that leaves us with this one last, really important question. The choreographer, he was right all along. It all comes down to taking that first step. For Elena, it was having a difficult talk. So what about for you? What is that one single brave step you could take, maybe even today, to set your own hidden dream in motion?